Hey guys, I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about this. This is your headlight switch in my, this is my headlight switch in my 1955 Ford custom line. I'm having an issue with this spring in here, and you'll notice that it's got some buildup and corrosion on here. This looks clean on this side, but over here it's kind of like rusted and nasty. And then if you look in here, let me pull this spring back, you can kind of see in there. There's some corrosion on that contact that comes up and over here, and a lot of guys like to bypass this, but this is your actual dimming switch for your dash lights, like for your radio and your clock, and behind your my AC controls, whatever. So I'm going to take this thing apart and clean it and see if that fixes my issue with the dead spots. Okay, so what I did is you'll see this piece here. Sorry for my mess, guys. I'm making a mess in here. You've got this spring, and when you go to take this thing apart, you're going to have to compress the spring to get it over that ridge right there. But when you compress the spring, these three pieces are going to come apart, and keep in mind, they are going to go everywhere because they're spring-loaded. You'll see my spring here is kind of crusty and nasty on this side over here, and there's a little bit of a weird spot there. Let me try to get this thing to focus. There we go. And sorry, I got the shakes a little bit, guys. And then this side is clean. So I'm going to go through and clean this up real good. And then I'm going to also go through and clean that contact up, which is your little arm that rotates on that spring. And once I get that cleaned up, I will let you know if it fixed my problem. Okay, guys, we're back with the switch. And I cleaned this up a little bit on the inside as well, on the back side here. And I noticed that in looking at this switch, I cleaned up the spring as well. It kind of glides along that part right there in the middle of the screen, if it'll, okay, right there. So I cleaned that up. I also cleaned up this part here. We're gonna put it all back together and see if it fixed the problem. Okay, so we got it all back together. The spring's back in there with the cage that goes around it. It's turning and rotating the way it's supposed to, so let's get it back in the dash. One thing I briefly want to talk about also with the aftermarket brand, this is not one of those. Whenever you go to put it into the actual socket, let me get it in there. Okay, right there. That little ear that's on there, on the aftermarket one, was a tad bit too dang long, and it caused it to not tighten down properly. Just something to think about whenever you're putting these together. If you are replacing it with an aftermarket one, you will have to snip that down a little bit. Another thing I briefly want to touch on here is this aftermarket headlight switch holder. This is what the rod goes through. This is made out of some kind of pewter crap and then chrome plated. The threads don't really line up great. I paid hard-earned money for this, and it is basically junk. So what I'm doing, throw that away. I'm using I guess what you would call a brake line flare nut, and it matches up with the threads on here, and I'm going to use this with a socket instead of trying to fight with that flathead thing that piece of junk has. So my brake flare nut worked pretty well. It's holding it tight to the back there. You can kind of see it. I'm going to go ahead and put this chrome and the light piece on here like this, and then we will slide this in here and fight with it like everyone knows we have to. Okay, one thing I got to remind myself, after I rewired the whole car, I installed this circuit breaker switch. I need to turn this back on. Now let's go inside and check out 1962 Ford F100 Y block, if you're wondering. Let's go around here. Don't mind my mess. Let's see here. Now, we're back in here in the car. I got the light switch rod back in after fiddling with the button at the bottom. If you've done it, you know. If you haven't, there's videos out there on it. Okay, so now we've got lights, right? So this is one of the lights for the Speedo, right? So let's see if the dimming works or doesn't work. And it looks like when I had a dead spot before, I would have to like kind of fiddle with this light to find the right spot, and it looks as if, you can kind of see the light behind there, it's a little bright, but it looks as if we got rid of the dead spot. So I'm pretty stoked about that. That's awesome. It's working through the full range. You can kind of see the light in there. Through the full range of the switch. And now we can turn it off, on, off, on, and everything's working the way it should. So, anyway, hope that helps somebody. God bless.